이거 자캅 소소는 저기 주로 봐 양다시 되게 쇼에 되게 상황들이 좀 같이 배워 답지라 거한테 감제 저기
So all the Dhamma friends from around the world, your countries, I'm Dashi Deleg, and thank you very much. Thank you so much for joining our Tara teachings.
로지신하더니 다 같이 와리 로지트베 당한테 용진 통에 대바지 이 계시집에서 남쪽 샘때 동동으로 싸만들어서 대사까지서 왔다는 게 양당양도 쇼요리 이 이걸 못지 소리를 들으면 요리지 소바데 보고대로 고소 실리나데 시라 통고요 말이 되게 참만을 뒤속제더니 쇼요리 소바데 바탕 로지추고 되게 당한테 있고 용진 통에 대바지 이 계시제대에 이 계시제대에서 합적으로 이 계시제대에서 합적으로 이 조어들을 잘 이 계시제대에 다 미증이라고 좁고 상고되더니 내가 로지시 유르보로 들으면서 찾아요. 그 좁고들을 이렇게 야고 땅 덮고 땅 다른 사람을 같이 가르치는 들 도저히 안 줄라면 뒤 조던 줄라면 봐야지. 도가 제일 야고 달로 야고요래. 야고만 떨어뜨려 도성 대로지 메다 빠르지 야고적 말이 살아 대리는 당신이 바로 대리 사과를 살이 줘더니 다니 정도 상 맞지 받더니 나고작해요. 그 매일 돈이 다다다다 어지 배나디 무서 좀 강나라디 파서 돈을 나가니 뭐다 돈기 답이라. 그 타마야고도 감는 정도 대티는 늘 못알아서 까서 그래. 우서데 타마도 못이는 늘 까서 그래. 직장만 뛰는 못아 진짜 까서 그만 빼대라고 그래. 총총 따에 때들이 배 탑잘 때라고 라도 그 말이 당장 라로 쏘았다는 것을 지 사람들 봐서 담은 용제 대설이 소소한 걸 얘기요래. 들이될 때 빠져 이시대 몸에 이 체시제도에서 남 적시와디 텐더서 받아서 가디나 되니랑 라테게 잡고데 좁어데 아주 사제 잡제 되는 잡리 다다란 게 되니 소한테 벽갈 같은 참참참들이 오 참참의 페이지는 참참 페이 말이 있으니 대로 연구요래 배는 미카시에는 되니 하고 총회 약고 연구도 저도 권총선 줄 알았는데 말이 다 통례에 약고 연구도 되는 이 교시 오다초 양 맞지 마다 딱지 마다 맞지 발제 대바 용미 고조 용지 심시 가는 딱지 가는 오천은 잡아를 좀 버리 오 잡아를 따서 고 잡아를 빼차지 오 다다다랑 속고 차게 이 뭐들 또 로직을 또 들이 같이 들이 마피는 들이 술라 대바도 다른 교시 대바도 다 대라고 그래 대자와리 말이 랑게 대동 저왔던 것도 또 레이저에 요고 그래 레이점데 이자라 약발 때니 들이랑게 레이점데 항상 레이 받아 싸는 대라 들이 잡지도 받아 그 비용 때문에 뭐시 레이미게 말 샤과지 랑게 수남는 뭐지 간사지나 레이지 차상 다 두고 요물 양생체 뉴모밖에 요래 레이지 뉴모에 싹그 요래 레데 뉴모에서 다다릉하고 세바테 시작까지 땅에 샤지는 생명 타고니 뉴모바테 약고리 삼 약고 말이 삼 타고요 말 약자 뉴모바테 요래 약자를 해서 대나오데 그 칼리도 한 샤지 대제바삼지 뭐 저도 작과 제고서 일 그쪽 맞지나 딜레사 작과 다다더니 我做了说话的多出过来，做出过来，人做当出过来。哦，你怎么这样没事？这个朋友这个没有看样没事，你这里打打来没有呢？这都不来没的，东西接着呢？哦，这打东西接到了那么高兴呢？这个我打车嘛，路嘛从的，刚平个嘛来的，平刚平，这个马平的就是打铁路去，打南关的在到我过来上的，让说说进呀嘛，我这是到看嘛，就是这两个啥铁路去。这他把人家切落来，这样嘛，小瓜这边来这了，这是就当过来，小瓜马街来这了这里，打，他就种地这个，他就种地这啥跟什么的，这来这话的话上过的，这上了的，这话上来的话这上这个东西，这老上了东过来，这么这当个看了看呢，他们中嘛了说话头，中嘛了说话头了，会好的。가지 페이지 잡으면 가지 페이 말이 상태 담에 삼니오래 대도 삼나들이 랑 소치 종라로 그래 서마 타발람 체로 요래 그냥 타톡 람데 요래 대체 뭐로나 우리 다다 그더니 랑 잡지 다른 간에 종하더란 거야 그래서 왔다롱 나도 참말 제와 요리 이랑 그 답변처럼라고 대체 랑 대성그 대체하고 대로 맞춰봐 같이 모여래.
And so yesterday, I told you a few stories to show you the qualities of Tara, and it is generally important that we know the story of any deity that we are practicing, because it is said that, and that is said in Guru Rinpoche's supplication in 7 chapters. So it says that in that supplication it says that through hearing about the story, faith arises, or kind of clear faith or inspirational faith arises. And then it says when you see the qualities, then a real like a trust or like a real faith arises in the mind. And when a trusting faith arises, then the blessings will enter your mind. And when you are free of doubts, then all intentions will be accomplished. So I'm telling you this actually again and again. This is important for any deity that you practice. And this supplication in 7 chapters by Guru Rinpoche, it's not around, it's hard to encounter it, to find it. That is why I'm reminding you of it again and again. So when we hear the story, an inspiration arises within us. And when we trust, then faith arises within us. So most important is to have this trusting faith. And so, for example, if you know the background, the story of a companion, a friend, then you understand their good qualities. And so once you understand those good qualities, then you will be friends with them for a long time, on the long term. And then no matter what that friend does, whether it is positive or negative, you would always, then ideally, remain unchanging, a steadfast friend. So some people are like that, and some people are not like that. Some people, they are your friend when you're doing things well and everything is going well, but when not, then often that's the end of a friendship. And then these kind of relationships are impermanent. But that kind of friend is not considered good. So it's like that with the deity. The deity is like this steadfast friend, but even greater than that, because the deity is a companion that will be there from now onwards until you attain enlightenment. So, for example, when I was in prison, when you were going on the road, then there were cars going on the road, then one had to kind of raise like a kind of a black, or it's like a sign or something, or some kind of, I don't know what it is, like an object, to stop them basically from passing. And if you wouldn't do that, then nothing could stop them. Then they would just go. And so often it is like a bit like that with friends. And so now when we think about the deity practice, this is just a small example. But when we think about the deity practice, then we need to have faith and trust in the deity in the long term. And whether or not the blessings then will really enter our mind, then that depends on our own mind, our own faith, our own trust. But if you have faith and if you trust, then the deity will always look after you in this life, in future lives, in the Bardom, all the time. And also the Buddhas of the past have always done that, and the present Buddhas are doing it now. So they're always actually there, but then there are some people who, they think that sometimes the practice is beneficial and sometimes it's not beneficial. And so then they don't actually see that the three jewels are always present. So for some people it is like that. And actually, for the most part, because we don't have them always around us, we don't see them, that we think, often people think that the three jewels, they don't always think about the three jewels. And so, for example, then one thing comes up, like they want to be successful in their business, and then they ask what they can do about it. So they ask a lama what to do about it, but then often that lama doesn't really investigate, really examine that person, and doesn't really know whether or not that person has real faith and whether that person really knows the qualities of the three jewels and so on. And so they just give this kind of standard answer: you should practice Dzambala. Then you will, right now, you will get rich and your business will go well. And so then that person practices Dzambala 1 day, 2 days, 1 year, 2 years, and so on. And maybe a few things along the way get accomplished, but then maybe they find that it hasn't really helped. And then they turn away from their faith in the Dharma and their faith in that spiritual teacher. So we shouldn't think in this way. So our reliance on the deity should be really unchanging, steadfast. And how we really come to a point where we are unchanging and nothing can turn us away from our faith, it begins with understanding karma. So we have to put karma as a basis. And whatever happens, if things don't turn out successful, it's because we have accumulated negative karma in previous lives. So for example, a person who has committed negative karma in a previous life, but in a previous life they have also taken, for example, the refuge vow. So they have understood the benefits of virtue and the shortcomings of non-virtue. But then the afflictions arose and they recognized the fault and they confessed. And then they dedicated their merits. So for such a person, because negative karma has been committed, even though they have confessed, maybe not all of their karma will become purified because afflictive emotions arise again. And again, it's really the afflictive emotions that accumulate karma. And so, however, they have confessed and they have recognized really from the bottom of their heart that this is wrong, the afflictive emotions are really a fault. So for them, things can be changed in this life, even though this karma still ripens. But then there is some who have never really thought about the negative, the fault of the afflictive emotions, and then the afflictive emotions just keep arising again and again and again and again. They accumulate negative karma. And so even though they accumulate negative karma and this ripens then. And so then even though so the thing is that even in this life, if they confess, if they have that karma that they have not confessed in a previous life, then even though verbally they confess and in a momentarily they think about the 3 jewels, then actually because they have accumulated this karma which wasn't confessed, often things cannot be changed around. But then we should still not lose our faith. If we have confessed in previous lives, then through the practice things can turn around. And so for someone who doesn't understand, has never understood that there's anything wrong with negative actions and has never understood the benefits of virtuous actions, when that karma ripens and they experience suffering, then often the suffering is too strong and it doesn't change. And they ask the Lama what to do, and I tell them, Tara, Tara, but then they find nothing helps, it hasn't helped anything, and often they turn away from the Dharma and they lose their faith. And they even say Buddhism just tricks you and so on. But the thing is that if in the past one has never recognized one's faults, one has never regretted them, and one has never vowed to not again repeat those negative actions, then when that karma ripens, there's often nothing that can be done about it. Because then often if we don't recognize what we have done wrong, then the path to liberation is really interrupted temporarily. On the other hand, if one has confessed in previous lives, then difficulty that arise in this life may be transformed. So it depends on that. If one has not confessed, then even the Buddha himself cannot take one by one's hand and liberate one. We have to purify our own negative karma. And the fact that we have a way to do so, a way to purify them, that is the blessing of the Buddha, really. So this is how you should really think about it. So I'm telling people to practice Tara, to supplicate to Tara, and for some it helps, and for some it is of no benefit. But if you think in this way, then you will really be the one losing out, because if you think in this way, then temporarily your path to liberation is interrupted. Of course, ultimately, it is never interrupted, because ultimately you possess Buddha nature. But for the time being, if you think in this way, and thereby you also transgress the refuge vows and so on, it is really your own loss. Whether you supplicate to the deity or not, the deity always loves all beings. But if doubts arise within your own mind, then temporarily this path to liberation is being cut or interrupted. So it's important to really reflect on karma here.
Lama Tamcheke, Namtanani, the Sharde, Lungtung, Kamla Pesa, there are so tongue about Tonto, they Tamchek, a Chigure. Hardly dinner, Rangiti, the same torture, same with the Rang, same the Sama, Hong Kong, nothing, Kari, at least Shapti, Rebig at the Tata, Yamicha Bakari, they Sata Budi Basong, the Lita, Pesan, Shekiore, they have just budget, they have just gone into the Jim Malaria, somebody. Tony just as long as Sipala, Salam Bam, Jerry Amson. Save the Gov Japsi, Sabat and Gideon, Gomshi, they said to start the dog. They start the song, they done Tata Madabe, Mayor Mato, the Tapas come to the Tongo Yore Penny. That is the Tongo. They didn't buy it any. They get Tapas Hang, they say, Madab, Message on Toyami. They kill him, and I'm back at my tongue came and then might be tired already. 대로는 고 코르데 랑가 마통로 진지만 통고 쭉자요 말이 다바치지 용띠시 바데 마소라니 남타 자담시를 오타티 용띠 대타 요리데 대랑은 통 고깝서랑 랑 샘티는 시하고 고름테는 내면 따티가는 통고 요리 빼지했다고 그래서 못하는 돌아 같이 통고도 라터쳐 대라서 갖고 요리 남편은 소리 참아 내하고 통고 요리 대양제디 충충 못하지 않고서 남편 토서 충충 차로 배 충충이 말만 때 자들이 다치 못하고 요리 남편 통은 남편 소리 지으라고 맞아 요 말이 대라고 다다 우리 통상나 대라고 사람 그런 말은 sempre 사람을 봐 대례장 빡체가 제발 파과리 전들이 사람고 용때 사제 그 남타에서 예법감이 땅 나가 몇그 마통 크레미니 대라고 지는 시체 고가 차로 요리 대담이 다른 거 마통은 세부 용때 요리 따라 상제에 되는 감 소원도 같아 사제도 같아 대다고 지는 사제 상제 용때 사제의 용때 취지 용때 권조성 용때 되나 들들이 진짜 소소한 거 마통와도 된발만 진이 대다고 고리들이 남타다 그 담실 상로 땅이나 들이랑간 제버들이 마자와들이 톱톱고 요래 들이 지와한테다 지와 제압 유고 얼마도 멋대대 죽어라더니 대 같이 다 용치에 맞도 돼 갖고 요래 들이 맞도 돼 망시에서는 집을 두고 요래 직접바시 하는 용리 대회들이 참여 대사와 싸먹었더니 라마탑제 같이나다 들이 상지 삼제 남타이나다 대 무슨 적이 매열들더니 잡들니나 나랑 게 kok과 차야 맞아 요 말에 대다 대파 단한 거니 인식을 해야지.
So what I'm sharing with you today is a story that is generally from the Drikung Kagyu lineage, but also I have a personal connection to it. And so it has to do with the vision of a lama. And so many lamas have told stories of how they have traveled to Pure Lands and have seen the deities and received prophecies and so on. And when I hear them speak about that, I truly trust in what they say, because what appears to us, what we see really is our own mind. It's the the magical display of our own mind. And when one sees one's own pure mind, then one might see those Pure Lands and various manifestations. So things appear differently as one progresses along the different stages of practice, along the bhumis and the paths. The scriptures describe the particularities of the first and the second and the third and so forth bhumis. What Mila Ripa had said is, he said that the clear vision appearing out of emptiness is the as the clarity of emptiness becomes increasingly clear, and this is what we call progressing along the bhumis and the paths. So it's just an increase in mental clarity and seeing of emptiness. So as one keeps practicing love and compassion and continues to meditate, the mind becomes increasingly clear. So someone whose mind is still impure, all they can see is, for example, this human world, and they don't see the Pure Lands. So then if you tell them about the qualities of the Pure Lands, they can't see it. All they can see is impurity. So they will not believe you because they think that I only believe what I can see with my own eyes. And that is basically like a communist view. One just believes, like materialistic, one just believes what is actually there. So I don't see the Buddha directly. So people don't really believe, therefore some people don't really believe in his existence. And then they don't understand, of course, the qualities of the Dharma and the blessings of the Dharma. And then no matter how many stories you tell them, it's hard for them to see, even though those qualities actually exist. And so I therefore believe that if you hear those stories and you hear about these qualities, that even though I don't see it right now, when my wisdom, my awareness increases, I will begin to see things that way. So for example, if you're traveling in a car, then you see everything from this perspective, like you see them, you're driving over the mountains and you see the mountain passes and the valleys and the rivers and so on, and it appears like very large. But if you're traveling on an airplane, for example, then you are cutting through, flying over all that very easily, and you're seeing it all as very small, like little ants. And then the more the plane descends, the bigger things become. And then from our perspective on the ground, when we look at an airplane, we see just like a little bird. So our perception is like that, and it begins to become clear as we progress along the bhumis and the paths, and even more so than in this ordinary example. So therefore it is significant to hear about the life story and the qualities of the Buddha. If one really thinks that I just believe what I see with my eyes, then one really becomes very dull-minded, and one thinks that just what I see is really there. But actually, even if I don't see it right now, the qualities of mind still do exist. For example, the Buddha did come to this world, and so there was a Buddha, right? So there are certain qualities that we might not be able to see in our own mind, but that still exist. So there are those qualities of the Buddha and of the Dharma, of the three jewels. And when you just bring them to mind, then trust will arise. So don't just believe those things that you see with your eyes. So that is why we start with the history and then all the qualities along the path. And then because it does exist, we can then know that such a result will be obtained. It can be obtained. And for some people, it doesn't even necessarily take many lifetime after lifetime. There are very few individuals who realize all of this instantaneously in this very lifetime. But that's very difficult. The vast majority of us has to progress in a gradual way. There's really only very, very few who instantaneously realize. So in this way, we have to think about the instructions that we hear from the Lama, or when we hear about the life story of the Buddha and so forth. So if we practice with such faith and a pure perception, then any kind of adverse conditions, even in this life, you might have an opportunity to really transform them. So we need to be able to listen to these stories with a pure perception and faith.
제가 토마토라고 보고 중국 갔네. 또 밀어 왕 걸고 요래. 고비도다 다 서로 로들이 동서제는 왕 걸고 그래. 왕 걸들이 왕왕 배사왕 복걸시요 말이. 왕 충중 왕 충지 총한테 강리들 로마 왕이 로마 왕들 거는 로마 왕들 로지는 다송도 로마 왕들 석단 말이들 이 초하다 왕진영들이 같이 틀려요. 저 콩크들이 로마 샤르증 송말에 그런 샤르증도 라벼 말이 말람상 보통 이제 로마게 신청도 뽑아라서 봐 제바 홍대 송들이 말람상 보면 이 콩크들이 초하다 담아이 인송实际上这里有嘞，这里真让了这里 자왕의 집 속에 사대 이지 놓 초가 봐 톱송도 다 대자 집어도 여다 다리 집 속에 가리 토는서 들삼로 땅들이 문제 제세가 보고 총총 총총부터 막 나고자고 볼까서 들이 그치디제 디 자노시면지 로마티 공전이들이 잡부들이 거기에 대지 막 나고자고 배 총총이서리 들 잡부랑네 들이 거기에 고잡아 탐지기 오 다같이 달달 양 자화 총직 소멸아 성제들 자직 톱성송 다하다 비대송을 애들이 또디 들이 고조대 이제 거기 오니 보디 무슨 설 달달로 내가 말도 공구자 달달로 파고서 놓고 대는 뭐지 송제 되게 다 차송을 들이 이스들이 정상의 깔롱밥들이 맹성들이 Garchen Rinpoche mengt 토살이 디가리데 송을 다다 저기디제 Garchen 로마 레다다 와베나들 요래 초가는 룸에서 초원에서 저도 동대리 되게 저도 룸을 초가 되냐면 제거래 왕권이 초가냐면 제거래 되냐면 제네 이 지서 때형들이 다다 보고 총들이가 공들이 왕롱만 보시래 대셔값서더니 이 맞지를 나 빠라게 나고 잡들 공들어서 이 공게 좀 정도들이 사실거는 빼참한 거 요래 보도만 거 요래 다 저런 것들은 보다는 가리가 보다책 가리가 저는 좀 못 가서 들이 나서 저것들은 이들 보다 중정하자는지 뭐지 당연히 보다 지보를 때는 나 보다 되고 오서 쉬하고 쉬디 거 허이 지처럼 다다를 때야말 마음을 잘 떼고서 이지만 거기는 낭리 때를 보다 대지비는 저 대리사 내가 때서 하래서 보고 배 가티 보다다고 야래 이 길로지 되는 쇼요래 이 로마크 같이 뭐 고마크더니 거기 말람난 로마 통이더니 로마크 저 정화다 봐 대다 낭송 이 거기 또디 띠제 그랬더니 근데 초가도 쌈치더니 말람야 고정하더니 거기 쌈바이 있어 저도 거기 좀 저가 말이 같이 저 좀 말이 딱고서 그래서 롱도 초가 그런 탈이 오래 쓰지는 무슨 냐면이야
When I was a young child, so I already had to give empowerments to people. That was the rule of the monastery, and also I had to go to the different villages, go around and hold pujas and give empowerments. And so at that time, of course, I didn't know a lot of the texts, and I just was giving a small empowerment, and the smallest of the small empowerments was the empowerment of Tara. And regarding the story of this sadhana of Tara that comes together also with the empowerment ritual, it was composed by the previous Garchen Rinpoche, Garchen Rinpoche, and it is said that he had seen Tara directly, and then based on that wrote that sadhana. But of course he wouldn't say that he saw Tara directly. He would say that he had an auspicious dream, and in that dream then Tara gave him a crystal mala and a vase, and then so based having received that, then he wrote down the sadhana, and all of that is at the end in the small print, the history of the sadhana, of the White Tara sadhana that we practice. So also Gyabang Rinpoche Phuntsok had received this wish-fulfilling jewel, the wish-fulfilling wheel, and regarded it as very precious. And so so how I myself have received that through also Rinpoche Punso was that when I was a young child, then when the mother was still taking care, at that time, this Garchen Rinpoche was brought to a Lama called Guncho Dengye to receive the refuge vow. And so because I was still very small, the mother brought me, and so he picked a piece of my hair, and the other monks would say that, oh, now we got another one who, a small Lama who is a small monk who is under us. And so then this Lama Guncho Dengye, he said that actually he will not be under us, but we can be fortunate if we will be under him. And so this is then basically how after that gradually the Jigong Kagyu title and so forth have been given. And so also this Master Dengye in the previous was the disciple of the previous Garchen Rinpoche. And so this is the sadhana that we have received from the previous Garchen Rinpoche, and then also the way I have received it was that so later I also received many empowerments and transmissions from him, from Lama Dengye. And so one day my father brought me to his residence, and there were a lot of tankas and a lot of scriptures there, many volumes of scriptures. And then the Lama said, pick one, point with your finger to one volume. And so then I was looking around, and I saw this very small and very beautiful looking scripture. And of course I like something that looks beautiful, so I was pointing at that and said, I want this one. And then he said that, oh, now I can't give it to you, but I will give it to you in the future. And so one day he then gave it to me, and it was this wish-fulfilling wheel, the wish-fulfilling jewel, that sadhana. And I was so happy to see that it was actually that sadhana that I picked, and I was quite amazed by that, and I really took great care of it. So that's the story I wanted to share with you about that sadhana.
Tene kaptene tene dire kimpo daso na kimpo kong ema hote tene tinto tawine ne menki dagi dodje lo chokso baka gete kong ka to tene tene nam sa je ka jara ko u randa je da mu ta te sa shi ba da ore dona sana seni chira kimpo tena seni Hortasme chi, ye ne tamte, Roma Yujin Kulu, the Gaga Toilet, that Loka Chibo, the Ragalo Toilet, the Pache or the Teddy Roman Hit Nangsar Congo, Corango Toy Sare, Twitter Roman Hit up Nang, the Shatonga, neither the Bari Chong Shatonga, no more than Malam Tang songs.
So this is this text here that we are using, the wish-fulfilling jewel. And so it was, this particular part was written down by Rinpoche Punso. And so it begins with, so he was at this a spiritual Dharma institution, and then in the third month, the 8th day of the third month, it was a period of time where the obstacles would arise. So it was an astrologically inauspicious time, and so during this time of obstacles, he decided to practice Tara, to engage in a Tara retreat practice. And so on the 15th day of his practice, he had a dream.
야연다 다도 마음에 든 남니 드니 jam통의 진가를 남샤를 짜가 나의 숨제 나를 요리 드니 사람을 공무제 통내 보모스 레송들이 토크가 콩니마 패송 토크가 콩니마 패송들이 다시 사람을 사람들 무슨 도시 이 대기들이 바공은 대송송시.
And so then what appeared to him in that dream were three white girls, and so they appeared like kind of from among the clouds, like kind of hovering above the ground and shimmering. And so then they appeared before him, and then they spoke to him.
Regepochu, Rari Dumi into Chuka Ishika Dina, Dinsa, Nekwa Trans, Chuka Ishinga Dingatini, Satan, Rodu Yotansong, Song, Tola, Ye Pomoteki, Longa Yedotibi, Gigi Diva Transong, or Tola, you take Unity. Nisa mangi randang tuk dada chang chuang song ta tie tam tir zhe pomo song de re song zhe ne zhuo la xu di li pomo ye yong ni pomo de wo ma de tam song se pomo wo ma de tam song song.
So these three girls entered his inside through his nose, and so then from within, then the central girl then said to him, "Do you wish to reach the dwelling place of the Dharmakaya, the primordial expanse of Dharmakaya that is endowed with 5 wisdoms, of your own primordial self-knowing awareness?" And he said, "Yes, I wish." And then the girl on the right said, "Do you wish to become adorned by the ornaments of the great Sambhogakaya?" And he said, "I wish." And then the girl on the left said that, "Do you wish to be guided by the kind of the self-radiant Nirmanakaya?" It says that is either certain or uncertain kind of Nirmanakaya. And he said, "Yes, I wish." And then having said that, then the left and the right girls then dissolved into the central one.
Ngabja tamar chepa tse megi choba ngaki pejar shen chitang senpa lokto me pejar chuji riba chuji riba cheso deji cher gebju jiwa sehu tongi win dirza sim dirza te sim 파로 유지 절 라초페 팔 마타마미지 소시 다시 방송성디 제 동들이 나니 리미트 장에 서로 조사리 아니 다다 뒤중만 내리 니다도 서마송들이 깝들이다 너네들이 perché è stata io vedo questo intorno stavano io mai nel giorno se io 잡지는 바로 보지 그랬더니 보다 충충 수준에 되니 라마탐실에 남들 누구를 나반지야 들이 대비 되니 사상로야요 말했지.
So then there was the central girl who rose up, and she said, "Now this is the time, the degenerate age of the last 500 years, and during this time, non-virtuous conduct is ever increasing, and due to being obscured by wrong views and ignorance, people lose faith in the Dharma. And then those who practice the Dharma, their life force is taken away by Maras. And then those who practice virtue are deprived of food, drink, and clothing. And the minds of sentient beings or disciples to be tamed are transformed, are changed by other demons. And then regarding those who dwell in mountain hermitages, their life force is destroyed by humans and non-humans, and so forth. And so there's also this text also has some small print in there, which was probably not originally there, written by Rinchen Puntsok. In any case, it was put together in this way by Nupa Rinpoche, he had printed these very small little texts that were actually, we are supposed to, they're small so that we can keep them on our bodies, but this entire text is actually not something that is to be recited.
다투인 정말 등에 대해서 요거 요래지 대려 손으더니 도지 무슨 콘생람데 이 다트다 도지 저거 살아 홈트는 로이지 홈트는 다자들 로이 초단들 마족 설동 이송 이렇게 쉽게 그리 무슨 자가 여다 홈가라 보여는데나 레제 지war랑 로라 핀파 가원 중 이제 장 인세 심지 냐바 고가메 단을 르니 개는 타조 생 남민세사 세베 르인베 당부 르자 찬을 가와라 당부 초바 보는 마랑시 라셈 라만드는 다타미 데스 서로 탐색 정도 잘 생기시 좀 계속 저가 매 남도 예내 쪽으로 잘 녀와 반응 처리 라라라 도지 창고 공부는 속장 자당 출보왕도 뭐로 라사랑도 지랑 감들시 이다서 되겠네
So in brief, she said that there is a lot of suffering that will arise in the degenerate age. And so then she continued on. And so then those who are deprived of the authentic Vajra master and who do not understand that this is all the play of the Maras, and who have cultivated wrong views and who have broken their samayas, their minds will be tormented by a lot of suffering. And then they fall into a place from where it will be difficult to become liberated. If you have the eyes of awareness, then rise with me. I'm kind of walking the path of the inner space. I'm going to the inner space of the Buddha Vajradhara. And this is the place which is like a treasure house that bestows all one's wishes. And it accomplishes awakening within a single life. It is such a miraculous path. And so this is the supreme path that I will travel to. You should not remain here, but you should rise with me. And so then he replied. So then, in the past, in the land of India, there was Humkara, And then in the land of Tibet, many great karmically destined ones appeared, and have brought about great benefit of sentient beings, and for that sake have endured many hardships.
Yang kita sedikit nebet, kita sedikit nebet yang tenare. Aku semua.
Tarong charmasong.
Yang tenare, dino yuso cherang nuci, dinis yang te demares, ujang mawo trao long mi pe, chu je drep sing ti pe la nga yin de, chu drep de je nga yin de mo, chu je drep sing ti pe la nga yin, chu je ce ba che se se wong, chu le je ni che wa che mi jang, roa jin pi ba che wa da, zang yin tam tam, loka dharma so kan den tong tu jin le, rong pa tang, le jin ga chi mi ba sa se, don ta ta nga se, ros, ta te sa je pi ba se de, nga nyang de chang ros e de.
So then, so if you follow this way, then the endless taking rounds of taking birth will come to an end, and karma will become exhausted. How joyful it is that a beggar separates from the enclosure of his body, and the skull of this beggar will become shattered. I am certain of this. However, your mind will never separate from the Guru's mind. So for this reason, you will not separate from the vow and the samaya. The little bird of mind is immortal beyond death, and the thoughts are primordial dharmakaya. In this way, you separate from mistaken thoughts. Then the realms of hell are your own confused perceptions. It is up to you. Although one dwells within the inner space, the inner body, the inner space of Vajradhara, dwelling within the inner space of Vajradhara, one does not become controlled by attachment, aversion, and confusion. So if you want to go to this place, then it is up to you, then come. In response, he said, this is true, what you say is true. And so then she said, so then there is no time to talk a lot. Then deity that you should practice, that you should follow, that is me. And then relying on that deity, all the obstacles in your life will be cleared away. And even though to you it makes no difference whether you are born or die, in order to bring benefit to other sentient beings, you must appear and in the various worlds, in this world and so forth, and bring benefit to everyone who comes in contact, sees or hears or thinks of you. You have to guide them, and so in order to ripen those with karmic destiny, this evening you should follow me. I think this is how far
Garchen Rinpoche said, Dacha Langte, Perna Panang, number tripping the Sambatan Dacha, Nabudile, Tataribu, Jitini, Rayok Shaman, now the Lamdrik Panang, lives on the Titani Sumana Gires, 3 tip promoting Duni, Lamna Sebe Soe, Lamna Se Soe, Roar Rukuba, Tonang Savage song. 대리선배 타마고 최대 양보하시고 우서 다른 소자 좀 받아 이제 통화당 마와 때문에 거가 우서 락트 잡도 치고 매회 때와 rum보치 되고 진짜 rum보치 되면 러치부 되고 나머지 저들해 봐 싸와 잡도 대는 거 속아 되고 강르 개바 방르 싸와 자리요 봐 대다고 나와라 다다다 parte 인지들이 남내 양 대수과 나와 선별에 세예 중용근 나발라 나들이 차차 좀 마롱만 나서 봐 좋아난.
And then it continues. So then she having said that, I also got up, and then as I got up, there appeared a spread out like a kind of a blanket or like a carpet in space, and it was like we are traveling on this carpet, and the girl in front and me following the girl, and as we traveled, I saw the various places in the six realms of samsara very clearly. And then we continued to travel, and we came to a spacious, a vast, red-colored open land. And at the center of that, there was a mountain, a rocky mountain that looked like a pile of weapons, and then it was surrounded by various weapons, yeah. And so then at the center of that, so there was this enclosure. There was this circle of this mountain, and in the middle of that, in the center of that, I saw a lake of blood, a great lake of blood, that at its center, in the center of that lake, there was a jeweled, like a mountain with a jeweled, peak and clouds, and mist surrounding it. And then we came to its center and saw that the root of that kind of like structure that was there was planted at the bottom of that lake, that old kind of sea. And on the top, so it was a mountain, yeah. So on the bottom, it was standing on the bottom of that blood lake, and on top it was a snow mountain. And in the middle, there was a grassland, and then toward the bottom there was like rocky mountains. So this is what appeared to me.
내 낭대 야르테베 잠통게 쳐서 우승 공부 예수 까보 용도 마비나 바지 동하래 와서 나와라 보모지 니 낭도 로제 인서 저거지 야 방송에 내 나라 저거들 다 저거지 그봐 도봐요 봐 그봐 도봐지 내좀 그봐 도봐지 야 여기 뒤뒤 그봐지 해주는 다 바른 줄 아나니 다 야송인세.
So then, regarding the shape of that, so it has the outer shape. This place had the outer shape of a Dharmodaya, which is tetrahedron, and that was its outer shape. On the inner level, its nature was flesh and blood and unpleasant odors of various kinds. And then inside, I looked closer, and there was when I looked inside, so we went inside this kind of mountain, and inside, upon looking closer, there and the center was blue, and when I looked to the right, it was white, and looking to the left, it was red, and in these three spaces were completely empty. And then the girl said, this is where we are going to do. I'm going inside here. And so then she manifested this kind of yarn, like a thread of yarn that she threw up, this kind of a long cave. And then it turned into a rope, and then she pulled herself up through that rope. And I followed her.
yang song tin zang na yun je ge kan jiao ji go wu shi la ma zuo jin chang le zuo lu jie zuo xu su ta ji de la ma zuo jin chang mu xin jian le ta ji de de ta na bei mang wo yo de de ta na ji ta to ma de xu de wo zuo ji chang de qi song lu.
And so then they went into this hollow space. So then they both went, and so then traveling through this space again, they came to like a cavity that was like a cave that was shaped square, and so then he saw. They continued walking, traveling, and then they came to a cavity that had 8 corners, and so then, as before, they kept going further, and then they came to a cavity, a cave that had the shape of a crescent moon, and then they walked in there and continued wandering there to travel there, and then they came to a cave that was white and luminous and looked very spacious, and then they kept walking through there, and it was white and luminous, and then at the end of this cave there was another little cave that was triangular shaped, and then they kept going there, and there was a rainbow light sphere of clouds and mist, and so surrounding the guru Vajradhara. And so this is then the point actually where he had received, there were many sadhanas instructions that he had received from Vajradhara, but this was when he received his first instruction by Vajradhara. So at this point where he encountered Vajradhara, so they went all the way up, so they were at the highest cave, and then they went down from there. And then in each of those other caves, there was a deity in each of those caves, and then they stopped in each of those caves and received instructions from those deities there.
제조야 요는 제조 더더 다저게 제조 휴스 대오도 거래라 왕도 야마지 제조 휴스 대오도 신지야 요는 예당 콜로 콜로 동전게 제조 휴스.
So then they went down to the next lower cave after Vajradhara, and there they encountered Manjushri, where they received the instructions on the generation and completion stages, on the primordial awareness that destroys ignorance. And then we went down to the next cave, where they encountered Amitayos and Tara Yap and Yum, where they received the instructions on generation and completion, on the longevity called moon rays of nectar. And then they went down to the next cave, where they encountered Gurukula, where they received the instructions on generation and completion of the red lasso that magnetizes or overpowers. And then they went down to the next cave, where they encountered the innate deity Yab and Yum, which is Jagosamvara, where they received the instructions on generation and completion, on the Yidam and Jagosamvara's heart, his heart instructions. I think that's how far.
They order Namsela, not the Yino, they order the Gobola, Yanger Trocher, Tadev.
And then they went down further, where they encountered the deity Vaishravana, the wealth deity, where they received instructions on generation and completion, on the wish-fulfilling jewel that accomplishes wealth. And then they went further down, where they encountered Mahakala, where they received instructions on generation and completion, on the basis of abundance, the wrathful clapping that leads to abundance. And then I think that's how far we went down. Yeah.
There are Tripata Javala, one top day, Duniter, Sebe, Pomote, Rangi, Randu Dodging Motu, Yadam Jinjin Yamni, Lentan Telesurku, Poakanda, Sami, Rigdi, Muwanga, Damba, Longtin, Mao Shanjar, Namnang Des.
So then, after having received these instructions, he says, then my own body transformed into an emanation, and from that I received empowerments, and then the girl who was there in front went to kind of the top in front, above and in front, and introduced me to my own body, having the nature of the Vajra body, and she gave me instructions, oral instructions, and a daily practice, and then entrusted me with the karmic like the destiny to engage in enlightened activities, and so then she also gave instructions on the white arrow of or inconceivable white arrow of the transference of consciousness, and instructions on the visualization, and also the empowerment on the condensed family, like how all the Buddha families condensed into one. And so in this way, I received instructions and prophecies.
얘네 랑기 장주표 셉라 the 이바 세데 살 부모티 랑기 내 강데 짤 부모티 랑양 달라 텀베 나와 라 이세베 토랑제 투나 요리버 다오소.
So then, after having received these, then I myself made offerings of various kinds in order to please the deity, and then that girl in front, she brought me back to my dwelling place. And then the girl dissolved into me, and then I woke up from my dream, and it was, and I was about then to enter the first session of practice before dawn.
So long can come to Lotu, the Rang Nawa late, Charity, can come trunk with by your local Livanga. The head Tanti yet the car or it is the head Tanti jetty, Rangsem district in Bokonga, Tata Madaba community, Nimong Tongari. They sound took them down the task on the top by Sing Aso. The territory that Jachin say, you shut up the name, you shut up the Deras Watanji, Ragazukura. Sala Chatang Yori, say, La Yang Setrabaka, Tenang Yori, the sound the Rang Sem Rang Lula, Chatang Yori, so that you took it to the Yoka de Chijam, the short tela, took the you shut up the Yori song. They tell me just the Salat you knew, just a carried in a Sagat Trapaka, now the Shinetani, Nisam now, Chanatani. 롱거를 상기했더니 참아 라가 나와를 잡더니 느끼니가 각각 많이 봐. 들으서는 적대 자의 강들 라가 대다가 다는 데를 찾으러오래. 들이들 나와 셈도 타지 참아 라가 나외 잡대 봐. 대다वर 다톡들 셈도 다 손을 롱거를 들이 왕저는 롱거들 뭐라는지 동방에 죽어요. 대다가 장을 이제 다 마다바가는 라가 zu보들이 자부만하니 아치들이 송들이 나버치베 떼이더라 라가 나버치베 떼이데 대식 못해 뭐서 마토베 나오냐 반데 애들이 나타 고접 산쪽 sem정하고 다과이 시용어들이 제들은 뭐 싫었고 잘하더니 제들은 뭐 대통령이니까데 제 삼지 레스토랑들이 다베네 주의 삼지 삼님 맞아봤다 아스랑 기보때 이제기야 송고요래 삼자에 적대 대원을 배자치고 먹고 송고요래 돌나 대자와 가느리 소소게 단냠니 대자와 지나 들은 레버 대자와 돌은 들랑 상제지요 봐 선지 상제지요 봐 상잡을 까미 들이 다다 다더니 죽었다 롱거지 송레가 들이 잠깐만 왕저지요 봐 대상제 또 거요래 대회를 들이 또 쪼고다 가서 상착sem리 그리고서 다다 까면더니 저거 동시에 이제 매섭서 손을 들 가다가 로지시에 봤더니 나지래 들때 비제들 나가 샘디 다디지 다르더니 진핑을 로저 채비 받지 진핑을 로더니 다 돈이 전에 돈 담고 대바데 니스메 들이 이시는 미네들이 소소랑을 이시규에 봐도 소소랑을 랑 세고 내로 대코나 이도나 들이 탐지 이식이 주요이 맞들이 대리전이 통고 열면이 다다다 무슨 마다백은 자공적 딴데 처리시 월시는 차동 거리 대 마주백도 초토고 열말이 얘는 마다백 나와 대다에 다고는 대다 상속선을 졸라 대다에 들이다 대추 탐지 대다에 양치 치보고네 무슨 라크들이 롱도록 대다에 돈담고니 들이 제티로만 랑 sem기 다고 차텔에 좋은 거요래 그것도 자리 산책 세정고 사바는 니지고 요래 들이 조금 사람들이 다 살았더니 mala tiri po monji yore tapta shirab ni nang tapta shirab ni tera sopa kone tiri mata sha jin jewa te yang ta yang de te salong tan jewa kai go da so sa chok sem go yore so sa chok sem ka da de ba ta go yore nang cha go sho go yore de we de tiri sla sla yo mari tiri te ta sar ta de she ba yi te rang logi te sa jewa yore te she chok yo bi ha ko mari te ta de bo chen nang song de 그 갑상자들 저서 로마 답지 대바치 뭐 로마 것들 로마로 써왔다 잡을링이들 나와 사지 봐서 로마지 짜치 본난 거 요래 드리테는 드리테 로마로 대파 당 너바티에서 이시 대파도 이시 대에서 되게 시작 봐이 이가 지나 되게 시작 봐시 라 시작 봐이
So then ultimately in the end, she dissolved into himself. So it shows, what this shows us is that all of these, the appearance of the Pure Lands, the Sambhogakayas, actually are not separate from the mind. And to the Sambhogakaya, the Pure Lands are the Sambhogakaya's own self-projections, even though they are limitless Pure Lands. And that is established through understanding the 5 certainties of a Sambhogakaya. And where is the basis of seeing it that way? It is one's own mind. It is the inner space, one's own Buddha nature. In an impure state, there are the 5 poisons, the afflictive emotions. And when they become purified through bodhicitta, they mature into the 5 wisdoms. And so there are many very elaborate explanations on that. So, for example, one mentions often in terms of those Pure Lands, there are those 24 sacred sites that do exist on the outer level too, in the form of, again, Nirmanakaya manifestations. But the seeds of these 24 sacred sites also exist within one's own body and mind. For example, in the Nyingtik practice of the Yumchen Deche Gyalmo, it explains those 24, which is Yeshe Tsogyal, it explains those 24 sites and how they really are present within our body. And the basis of these sites is really Buddha nature. And on the outer level, they do also appear in the world in the form of Nirmanakaya. So when one realizes this crucial point on the inner level, then one will not develop a dualistic perception and recognize that those appearances, those visions of the Pure Lands and the Sambhogakaya are all one's own self-projections, and that in fact the entire universe and all beings are that. They are all not separate from one's own mind. And so this as a basis then causes one to see the entire universe, the world, as a divine palace, everything pervaded by one's own mind. So then ultimately when the mind becomes completely pure, then one becomes a Sambhogakaya. And the essence of that Sambhogakaya is emptiness, and that is the Dharmakaya. So now from an impure perspective, we perceive this body, ordinary body. And so this was a story about how, like a journey in one's body up through the central channel. And really what was traveling was the consciousness, one's own Buddha nature, which when we have not realized the nature of the mind is perceived as the concept of me and I. And so on the relative level, in this way, as our true nature, Tara abides in the essence, as the essence of our bodhicitta, and ultimately she is primordial wisdom. the wisdom quality of our own mind. And so that is seen when all grasping is dissolved. And so then all of these inconceivable Pure Lands and Sambhogakayas become manifest. And so there is so much commentary to be given on that and on Tara. And right now also Khenpo Tenzin is teaching on the 21 Taras. So much commentary can be given on that. But in brief, the root that we need to understand here is that if I engage in practice, then there can be a result. I can attain enlightenment. All sentient beings can attain enlightenment. And when one attains enlightenment and becomes a Sambhogakaya, the Sambhogakaya is in union with the Dharmakaya. And as that union, this mind then can overpower or basically realize all of the Pure Lands. So this is really what we are shown here through this story. And mainly to realize it is, in order to realize it, what we need is bodhicitta. So now in this world, it is the Nirmanakaya that really tames the impure Nirmanakaya. So Tara appears in this world as a human being too, to tame sentient beings. Yesterday I told some stories about that. And then gradually, as we engage in practice and we cultivate an altruistic mind and we cultivate immeasurable love, self-grasping, this sense of me, will transform through altruism into emptiness. And then one sees the ultimate truth, that is non-duality. One ripens into non-dual primordial awareness. And this wisdom is the domain of one's own self-knowing awareness. So whenever one realizes the nature of one's own mind really as it is, then we speak about this sphere of self-knowing primordial awareness. For now, we still are like ice blocks. And so even though I can say that the ice is water, if you take the ice block and hit someone over the head with it, they will still bleed, even though it's actually water. So that knowing in itself also hasn't yet melted the ice block. So that feeling of melting has not yet arisen. And it arises when we cultivate bodhicitta. And then when that arises, one's perceptions perform as the impure mind becomes a pure mind, and then these incredible appearances become manifest, like in this story. So it is all as kind of the story is an appearance, the appearance from the ultimate truth, seeing the pure nature of one's own mind. And on the relative level, it is the appearance, the essence of bodhicitta, of love and compassion. And meanwhile, now temporarily, beings appear as a male and female, and deities appear as male and female to represent the inner union of wisdom and method. And so this is how, also through this practice, it is a way, a method for us human beings to connect to the deity. And so then if we connect, we keep connecting to the deity again and again, mainly what makes us be connected to the deity is bodhicitta. This is what purifies the mind. This is what melts this ice block. And this is really the unfailing blessing of the deity. So this is just a brief story about Tara, and also how I myself am connected to Tara. And I'm also not sure whether everything was explained really properly, also according to this text here, but it was given by Garchen Rinpoche to faithful disciples. And nowadays, actually, Tara is widely spread in the world. Actually, all the Buddhists in the world really regard Tara as very precious. And what I have shared is something I've shared with great faith in Tara and great trust in Tara. And if some things that I have shared were mistaken, then I openly confess that to the deity.
Tene tataji druptabde kona, oh, taji druptabde tachama, ngati druptabde gogo, di pecha gogo san, di mare, druptab tamchin, yongkong te tawa, la ngusi songo yoret. Yena tata soso, drup songo de la sari, jepti ruma chigre, oh, jepti ruma kanana chire de chigre, lag kare, lok kare sajage lok nyuma kaje kare na tene, jepti ruma shibate, oh, tan yongkong te tawa ret. Kada dhapa pula te ro long tu gu yores, muru tek yores pena. Te ro san, naga dhapta tere jiba, chepa gogo maare, ena dhala dhapta yo yores, o ti dhapta jada dhapta ka chepa maare, tepa ka chepa re, ichi ka chepa re mato, dhapta ka chepa re yo maare. Data dhapta gupa tungu kare le, o tan zabili le, tan nesan dhamma mambo chongore, sajete mara nyangu mambo chongore, te tabje tek nyam so tek so che de yang gor mo che ka san ha je ma che par de ter tre de gor mo che ko ostro yore yena ter ma yin da yo sa de ter chi ba de te do de yo go yore te we de te chama ga dong la tam jin jong kong te la de me yo ti te de la lu ti si ba te de per ji ti lu me song te ta ka li song so lu te ta re te nyu lok te ta re Nyuma tere te pata isi shirap te tawa yunga, tere sumba te kia sumna koo yore pe te tawa, rana kaasa rana me le, ra le wa res, la tere ngoo che chok yo ma re, tere te tawa singa tere rana ke kari jantana, jeti droma te nyami yana, nam ta loji samche, sosu ranga jeti droma tab kare na o, jeti droma te nyunga yore esi, te tawa ichi ke le yap ko yore. druptabdi wang shuko, tachi druptabdi long togo, di ye kawa te le kopa chado yore. Druptabdi chepar yoma, raga tepa ishi chepar chepo yore. Teri chudo tabdi teri rashi dele isho yi. Teri jato un choma shini, teri ta gong togo, pe tachi bori, tata nga shuja bari.
And so now when you, having heard about this text, this sadhana, then you might think that, oh, this sadhana must be really precious. I need to get it. I need to have that text. But actually, no, it's not about this text, actually. So when you practice a deity like Tara, then we learn about the source of where does she actually come from. But then, ultimately, all the deities are the same. For example, Tara or Chinrezik, whichever deity. And also whichever tradition you follow, whether it is the Sakya, Gelugpa, Nyingma, or Kagyu. So Tara is the same. And when you hear her story, then you recognize, oh, this is the same Tara. And so for the practitioner, then, there's no need to obtain a certain kind of sadhana or practice in order to engage in this practice. Really, any practice is fine, any practice of Tara, so you don't really have to get it. But of course, it is present, it exists if you want to get it, it's there. But the point is that the difference is not made by the sadhana. There's no difference in what sadhana or deity it is. The difference is made by your faith and your trust. And in order to develop that, when we practice a sadhana, we are being told the history and so forth. And so, for example, when you hear the history, you hear about what happened in this world, how the Buddha's teachings many times have degenerated and then again were restored and so on, and you hear about the continuous stream of blessings and how precious those, for example, Dharma teachings are. And those Dharma teachings is a tradition, this Dharma tradition is a tradition started by Guru Rinpoche, although there probably are some other dharmas too. So basically, this is the source that we have to hear about, and then it doesn't matter which deity you practice. But if you practice a deity, you have to hear about the source, so you know that these are the qualities of Tara, and this can be accomplished if I practice Tara, and this is what Tara had said, and so on. And then we are the ones listening to what she had said and the teachings. And someone who really knows how to listen properly, who has faith and has some wisdom and trust, they will then really understand. And so, again, it is important to understand that the difference is not the deity, and also we follow the deity according to our own karmic connection. So basically this is, for example, how we practice Tara. And this is the historical background of Tara and the sadhana, and how this sadhana has come into existence. And it's good to hear, because then trust arises. And so, however, you shouldn't think that grasp at this sadhana and think that now I need to get the empowerment, or where is this text, I need to get it, and then I need the exact empowerment for that text, and so on. So if you think in this way, then the mind just becomes kind of convoluted. And that really makes no difference, actually. What's important is that you have faith and that you have great trust. So with that, Dharma friends, Dashi Delek for today. And so, anyways, this text that I shared with you today, this sadhana, is very special. It's regarded to be a very special text in the Jigong Kagyu lineage.
Tori lam rima la sang sa lo, da de che ji tong ba de ta ro to ji cha de so, da de che ji tong ba de ta ro to ji cha de so. Everybody Sangha, thank you, long life. See you tomorrow.
Thank you so much, Garchen Rinpoche. And we will see you all tomorrow at 9 a.m. Khenpo Tenzin will finish the commentary on the 21 praises to Tara. Be well.